I'm delighted to be speaking to Tom Head today. Tom is the founder of G3NR8, a consultancy for a new age, innovating business with AI. He has 2 decades in digital. He's built multiple seven-figure agencies, worked with brands such as Red Bull Racing, JP Morgan, Tesco, and The Guardian. And now he's helping companies succeed with AI. They provide training, consultancy, research, and build out the right AI strategy to keep your company ahead of the competition. So a very warm welcome, Tom.
Thank you for having me.
I'm
Two
delighted.
decades in digital. Oh my God. How did we get here?
Yeah. Well, I'm really curious to be diving into your experience because I'm sure you're going to share so much value. And first of all, I mean, the name, I've got to ask you, G3NR8, it's a little bit of a mouthful. Why the name and why did you start it?
Okay, well, first we can blame Roy Murphy for the name, who I started Generate with. We just call it Generate, but I've said Generate so many times, I forget that when I give it to somebody new, they just sort of have some sort of internal error that happens when they attempt to read it.
Oh, so I've
So,
fallen into
but the
that trap.
reason the reason behind the name Generate is that well, a combination of things. One, we're in generative AI, obviously. So there was a link to the technology that we were launching the company with and what we were doing. We wanted to generate value for clients in the work that we did. And of course, we could register the domain name. So uh, those were the main reasons behind the name Generate.
Okay, so I've spelt it out, phonetically for those of you who may be reading it like me, but you say generate, and that makes total sense to be honest.
Yeah.
So you started the company with Roy Murphy with the idea of offering what?
So when we started, we had been using and playing around with AI for a while, and Roy was in it for longer than I was, but we were looking at what was there and what we could do with it, and very quickly we got on the tools and we built stuff. We built stuff for ourselves, right? Little prototypes, and we were seeing what we could do with it. And we just had a belief that this area would be able to deliver value to clients. And we've both been in the digital agency space for 20 plus years. And that space is amazing, and it's tough, and it's got this amazing variety of people in there and projects, and you learn so much. And we'd run digital agencies, but the reality of digital projects in a traditional sort of digital agency is you sweat blood and tears for those projects to move a needle like maybe this much if you're lucky, and then you write a case study which says you did this much, and then you put it into an award which claims you did this much. And and of course some of the projects, yeah, you do sort of hit home run, but the reality of the day-to-day of building an agency is most aren't home runs. Most are like incredibly hard, complex projects with loads of moving parts and insane expectations that don't do that much, right, at the end of the day. And that isn't a dig at agencies, because I think we all start out wanting to really move things forward. But one of the hardest things I found in the agency world was keeping hold of that brave idea through a project is insanely hard, because it gets chipped away at left, right, left, right, left, right, and you end up launching something that is basically the same as everything else in a market. And you're like, that wasn't what we started out wanting to do. So coming back to where we were, we had this belief that AI could be more impactful. We could do more stuff. We could have more impact. And, being a little further down the road, as you say, 2 decades in digital, for us, like doing good work, making an impact, enjoying what we do were the number one things, right? The whole belief we had was you do those things, you look after your team, profit, revenue will follow, right? And those things will come. So we had this belief that we could have an impact, but in reality, when we started, we didn't know where we would end up. we didn't know what we were doing. So the first year of our existence, we ran loads of different projects. We ran training projects, we ran image and video creation projects, we ran marketing projects, content projects, we ran discovery work, consultation work, and bespoke builds. And we sort of looked through all of this stuff, and we got to the end of our first year and we said, okay, what we really believe actually is that where we can have real value is taking AI and implementing it in the right areas for a business. And for us, it's building these intelligent automation frameworks that allow teams and companies to do more or to do better work while keeping those key human elements that we believe are really important, like creativity, like critical thinking. We don't want to get rid of those. We want AI to assist the humans in doing and delivering and thinking about great work. And so we ended up at a point where, we see a future where AI is going to be driven by agents, which are basically, AI that's able to do more than one task, more than one thing, integrate with different systems. And we go into businesses and help them figure out where to deploy it and how to create the right balance with their teams and the people in the business.
So this is like you were talking about how you worked before with marketing campaigns, digital marketing campaigns, and that you felt that there wasn't the scope to have much impact there. So am I right in thinking you're now working with the whole organization, not just with the function of marketing, for example? You go in and work with the whole company to see how AI can help the whole company be more efficient, but also get the results that they need. So it's a much broader and bigger proposition.
Yeah, our larger clients, we've expanded out into doing work across either maybe not quite the whole company, but certainly multiple teams within the company. And of course, then the work is needing to be aligned to the overall objectives of the company, because you come out with lots of areas that AI could help that we see that could be really, really good. But we want to make sure they're the right areas. And that lens of like, is it the right area is not just could AI do a great job, and do we does it still help preserve key human elements and aspects of the work, but does it also align to the bigger objectives of the company and help move it forward? And so we look through those lenses. So we do, we still work in single teams, but we do also work across multiple teams. And I think my comment about marketing and comms previously, when we caught up prior to this, was not that they aren't key areas that we work with and will work with in future, but the simpler tasks, let's say of like just rewriting a blog post or creating a couple of images, or creating a couple of videos from images, are getting easier and easier. And so particularly marketing teams, right? Marketing teams are a great example of teams that lean into tech and new things quicker than others. And so they're building their skill sets. So, we train teams and we get them to be able to use the tools that they can use day to day. And we spend our time on the more sort of advanced stuff that connects, multiple people in a team or multiple teams to be able to work more efficiently.
Very interesting. So would you who is your typical client? Like, who do you prefer to work with, and you feel that you can add the most value? Is there a certain type of business? Agencies, for example, are they big? Are they small, multinational, national? Like, who is your ideal client to work with?
Generally, sort of ideal clients are probably SME and larger businesses. We've worked with a couple of larger agencies as well. And we've done some training for sort of more, small to medium-sized agencies. But generally, we're working more with probably on the brand side in terms of, SMEs and some bigger clients. We've got clients like Samsung and, JP Morgan we've done work with, and Visa. But, that SME bit is our sort of sweet spot, really.
Okay, let's focus in on the agency side, just the work that you've done with the small to medium sized agencies that you've done so far, because obviously the main audience that listen to this are other agency owners. And obviously you're very well known in the agency space and you do some brilliant LinkedIn posts. You know, there's so much traction on those and so much, so anyone that's not following you should be. So let's talk about those agency owners because every agency owner currently is at a different like stage in their adoption of AI. Where would you say, you know, just looking at those agency clients of yours and generally your friends that are still agency owners, where would you say we're at?
I mean, it's a mixed bag, I would say, but again, agencies are good at leaning into this stuff, right? Agencies are good at starting to figure out how to use tech. I mean, I think we're already at a point in AI where there's, I would say across the agencies, there's good general individual usage of AI day to day. When we go in and survey clients and agencies, we run an insight survey typically before we do any work. And it serves a couple of purposes. One, it gives us like a temperature check on the organizational team because there's always a mix of excitement and fear in any team. It gives us an honest look at the tools people are using because we anonymize it. So you actually get what tools are people using and how often are they using them. And then we also use it to deliver feedback to leadership in terms of what teams are saying they need from leadership. So it gives us the ability then to help build the right communication, and then whatever work we do is built around those insights. But we typically find, if you look at agencies, the majority of people in an agency are going to be using ChatGPT. It's by far the number one tool that people use. As we go out into brands, it's still the number one tool. Maybe usage is a bit lower, but that is streets ahead of everything else. Agencies will then, they are experimenting with other stuff as well. So you will find a broader range in agencies. You will find teams using things like Midjourney for images. You'll find some of the more technical teams starting to use coding assistants and different writing assistants. And you tend to find that adoption is pretty good. But we're at this interesting place where I think you can get up to speed and use AI yourself pretty well now. And a lot of agencies and people in agencies are doing that, to take it and use it for a client in a well thought through, fairly structured workflow that understands things like copyright and IP and transparency and how you use it is probably a bit of a leap at the moment. And there aren't that many teams that are that advanced, in terms of that usage and how they're communicating it to clients, at least in our experience, in terms of what we're seeing.
I agree with you. There's everything, isn't there? There's the people they've got their AI policies in place, legal documents, have already had the conversation with the clients and are further down the road of using it all the time, not only to sort of streamline processes internally, but also with their clients' work. And then the other end of the spectrum, that people are just really not adopting it at all, or have used it for personal use, but maybe don't have any kind of agency policy, and everything in between. So
Yeah.
we're at that inflection point. But I mean, probably like yourself, like me and many of the listeners, it seems every day in the news that we're hearing that AI is going to take our jobs. The agents are coming, and I'd love to talk to you about agents a little bit more in a minute. But I'm just wondering your thoughts on, you must think about this, Tom, all the time, like between now and 5 years time, have you got any thoughts on how it's going to change business models per se, whether that's the client's business with marketing teams and sales teams and etc., or the agency model, which is quite reactive to the client's business? But
Yeah.
any
Yeah,
thoughts?
yeah. I mean, it is quite hard to look more than probably a couple of years out, I'll be honest, right? And we do think about this quite a bit. I mean, I think if you take a couple of years short term, I think yes, there's going to be disruption, but I don't think we're going to be in a place where it's suddenly doing all of our jobs and everything else. That the overused phrase, obviously, in the world of AI is, AI won't take your job, someone using it will. And at least for the next couple of years, that will hold true. The best thing and the best advice, whether you're in an agency or a brand or whatever you're doing in terms of work, is to look at the things that you do every day and to start to play with AI to see where it could help. And we all have repetitive tasks that we do, and we all have stuff that that we need to either report on or write or create or review. And AI can be a great tool for that. And today, really, like it's like having a really smart grad sit next to you for the day. Like if you're working and you use AI, you know that, right? It's like having a smart grad that you can tell stuff to, get it to do some things. It comes back, it's not perfect. You got to change some stuff or revise it or check it, but it does quite a lot. It can do quite a lot for you. And then the more you teach it, the more time you spend with it explaining what you want, giving it examples of what you want, the better the stuff comes back, much like it would if you just employed a grad that was sat there. So I think the mindset, at least for the next couple of years, is you want to think like that. You want to think, now I've got a grad and I can ask them to do loads of these tasks, and the better I am at communicating what I want and training it, the better results I get. And it won't be perfect. Like, you wouldn't get a grad in, ask it to write your monthly report, which was going to go to the senior leadership team, and not look at it and just send it straight there. You'd run through it, right? Exactly the same with AI. So I think that's the sort of principle. And as soon as you get that running, all of a sudden, instead of one grad, you can turn that into 3 grads or 5 grads or 10 grads or 100 grads, right? That's the insane scale now. And of course, it's getting the grad, i.e. AI, to work in the right areas, not asking it to do stuff it can't do. And part of that is understanding, particularly in generative, how these models work, right? They're probabilistic models, as in they are picking like the most probable response to what you put into them, which means a couple of things. One, you get variation. If you put the same thing into a model, you don't get the exact same answer out every single time. You get variation. Great for creativity, great for other things as well, but not great if you want the same answer every time. So so if you're asking it to do something in an area where the same answer needs to be consistent, there are ways to get around that, but you've got to think slightly differently in terms of how you're using it. And of course, they can make things up, i.e. hallucinations in the world of AI. They can make stuff up. They can make assumptions. They can put things together. And again, there are ways to reduce that, but you need checks and balances in there if you're using AI for like data that needs to be accurate, whatever it is, even if it's just reporting back to internally, let alone putting it out into the world, right? So you need to think about it in those sort of terms.
So let's take a step back, because it was my fault talking about the future. Before we leave the future, we were talking about specifically the agencies you'd work with to help. And you said, and I think this is a brilliant approach, you first of all audit what everyone's using currently in terms of usage, different tools and different ways. And then what have you done with other clients that are agencies to help them on that journey? Like, can you just bring to life how you help so that other agency owners can imagine where they need to be and perhaps think about who they need to bring in to help them accelerate that?
Yes, totally. Yeah. So the team insights are the first port of call, and then with agencies we've worked with, we've either gone in and run training across the organization, and that training is designed to get everybody up to a certain level, and also just to reduce the fear from people who are afraid of AI. And the way we run that is very engaging and quite interactive and obviously very useful and practical, right, to an agency and what they're doing. And then we've also gone in and run more team-specific sessions. So we've done quite a few creative team sessions and looking at how AI can help in specific areas of their workflow or comms teams and how it can help. It's very good in the ideation phase. It's quite good mood boarding. It's quite good for scamps. It's not quite there yet, like to create a final campaign output across everything just yet, but we are getting there. So like it's helping those teams understand which are the best platforms to use and how to use them, how do you link a couple of them together to get better outputs, and how do you think about them in the right way. And then for some of the larger agencies, we've run our discovery work where we've worked across teams and we've looked at where are the repetitive tasks they do, where do they have data but no insight, where do they need more data, and we've created sort of an operating blueprint for those agencies, and then we've scored all of the areas that AI could help with, and we've given them back this map basically to say, look, these are the really high impact areas that are actually quite easy to get started with, and here's how you can do it. And the agencies we work with, it's been a combination of some of the stuff they've taken on they can just do because they've got people internally they can do that, and some stuff we help with. So that's how we've worked with agencies.
Interesting. When you say they've got the data but no insights, what do you mean? They've got the client data or the agency kind of data from the clients that they've worked with?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're in a world where there's actually quite a lot of data people have access to now.
Yeah.
And, if you're in the agency space, like this could be anything from, consumer data, market trend data, Google Analytics data, surveys, any other stuff that comes from a client in terms of what's happened, any stuff you do as part of whatever work you're doing. So I think we've always got quite a lot of data, but getting insight from the data, and not just getting insight, but turning it into something, turning it into action, it's always been the challenge, right? And we used to call it the so what chasm in research when I was at my old agency, because you'd run research and you'd assimilate all this information and data, and a report would be written. And if it was good, you'd have some clear insights as to what to do next. But typically that report would then get handed around a few different people, might get in front of a creative director or a different agency that was running stuff, would end up being looked at but not really used and put in a drawer. And you wouldn't really get the thing out of it into what was needed. And you were like, well, we did all that work, and then did we really translate it into what was required? Whereas now, I think, number one, you can understand and lift insight from many, many different data sources, particularly unstructured data, and you can have conversations with that and understand it a lot better. You can lift insights, and then you can drive that straight into ideation or campaign concepts or, campaign strategy or whatever it is that the output is going to be. I mean, generally it's some form of communication, isn't it? It's some form of creative or written communication, and you can drive that really quickly into that process. And so we sort of shrunk this time or this process down into being able to go, okay, we've got data, we can actually now really understand it, we can get insight, we can do something with it quick instead of umming and ahhing and waiting for it. And so that's quite an interesting space, and that's something that agencies can start to do themselves as well.
I love that, actually, because I was just, when you were saying, you do this big PowerPoint deck about the research, but then no one sort of uses it, no one looks at it again, and it just kind of sits there. So can you share, because now I'm thinking you've got this data from the client that's obviously highly sensitive. So you want to make sure that any LLM you use or any tool you use to kind of pull out those insights is going to be closed loop or whatever you say,
Yeah.
Can you share with us what types of tools people use for that to make sure that it's not going anywhere, and we've got a signed
Yes.
agreement with the client that we can look at this data and extrapolate our insights?
Yeah, totally. Well, look, the first step that anybody can do if they're listening is you can use some of the tools that are out there and be pretty safe with them. So the first step is with whatever data you're reviewing, you want to make sure it's anonymized and you can't identify a person in that data. So in all of this, in all of the work, like within AI, there's a big hidden aspect which you don't see when you start getting into it, which is there's a prep, like, and in data it's cleaning and it's organizing and it's preparing the data you're going to use with a system. And that's always been the case. And in classical AI, when you were passing more structured data into machine learning models and algorithms, you would have to do the same thing. And now with generative, you still got to do the same thing, right? So let's just say, as an example, you've got a sheet of customer data from a client that you want to analyze and figure out what's going on in there to do something with, right? So we've done this for several brands, and we've looked at like massive numbers of consumer reviews across Europe. We've used AI to translate them all into English. We've then built a classification system because what we wanted to find out was, why did they buy the product? What did they like and what did they dislike? And we want to do that on a timeline. So we want to know recency and we want to know all time, and we want to do that by region. And so we took the data, and of course, number one is you've got to take out anything that is personally identifiable information from it. So you remove all personally identifiable information. If you want to translate it back, you switch it for like a GUI or a code, right? So you need a way to be able to identify somebody to a non-identifiable link, or you just remove it. You clean the data and make sure you've only got what you need to analyze. You don't want 1,000 columns if you're only analyzing 10 of them. Get rid of the other 90 columns or whatever, or 900 columns. Just have the ones you want. Clean the data to remove personally identifiable information. Make sure there's nothing sensitive in there as well. So if it's reviews about a product that are publicly available, you're fine. If it's the recordings from a company town hall that are internal, you're probably not fine, because there might be something in there that's like not meant to be out in the public. So you've then got to remove it. So you do your prep, then you can use it with, any of the well-known tools that are out there today, right? ChatGPT or Claude, and you can ask it to start to analyze that data. Now, the thing to do if you're using those tools is to go into your settings and make sure that your account is set up so that whatever you put into the tools is not going to be used for training future models. And what that does is it means that reduces the likelihood of anything you put in there being resurfaced later on. Now, I say reduce it because it shouldn't, but we don't know what's going behind closed doors of some of these companies. So if you clean your data and prepare it properly, you configure your tool setup so that you're as secure as you can be, you're then in a place where you can actually do quite a lot of analysis, right? Fairly comfortably, sort of knowing that you're going to be all right. And then to go on from there, the sort of advice is you want to build the classification systems with AI first. So you want to go back and forth and have AI analyze the data, and you're going to have in your mind some thoughts about what questions you want to ask and how you want to group it. And then you're going to want AI to do the same thing, and you're going to co-create this classification system. Then you're going to analyze the data. And if you follow those steps, you get some really, really good results. And obviously, so people can do that right now. The next step on from that is, if you do want to analyze sensitive data, or you don't want to take out the personally identifiable information, then what do you need to do? You need to be running an open source model on your own hardware. And if you run an open source model on your own hardware, then it's not going back anywhere else. Your interactions with that model are not going back into another company. You can ring fence that, and you sort of lock it down so anything you put in stays there and doesn't go anywhere else. But in general, for most people in agencies, the first approach in terms of just making sure your settings are correct, either in ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you're using, will go a long way. Yeah.
Love that. Okay. And you're right. I mean, it makes total sense. Anonymize the data, prepare it in advance, because that's what you do anyway if you were going to do any kind of data analysis. You said GUI. Okay, just sorry, I don't know what GUI is.
I actually meant a GUID rather than a GUI is actually a graphical user interface, which probably isn't right. You don't want to create a graphical user interface for every row. A GUID is like a unique identifiable number. So if you did want to, like, let's say you had rows and you wanted to analyze it, and then when you had analyzed it, you wanted to know, like, okay, well, what did this person say? But you didn't want to pass the person's name or their details to AI. You'd switch their name with an ID or a number that was unique, that meant you could decode it afterwards. So yeah, I meant a GUID or a unique identifier, basically. So
Perfect.
you could switch it out. Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. That's great. So this sounds brilliant. So particularly for agencies that may have some data from their clients that they want to then analyze, this is a perfect kind of workflow in order to reveal the information you need, which can be used by creative teams, strategists, etc. What else can agencies be doing that they couldn't do perhaps before with these tools?
I mean, I think, we see with the clients we work with, agencies delivering, we're working in partnership with some agencies in clients. And also because we are solely focused on AI, we do get a lot of our clients coming to us and asking us, did someone create this with AI, right? So they want to sort of sense check, hold on, I've been given this either internally or by an agency. And they go, like, we've just been given this. We had one recently for a comms agency. It was a client of ours, who'd been working with a comms agency, and they showed us some of the work they'd been given. And I didn't know where it came from at the time, but they said, can you tell me whether this has been created with AI? And within like 3.5 minutes of reading it, I was like, this has definitely been created by AI and hasn't been edited that much. And there are some like absolute giveaways, right? There's an extra long hyphen, which tends to come out of AI these days, as well as the Americanized stuff, as well as just some like, too many superlatives and like some of the writing, and you can generally tell if someone's lifted something straight from AI. And so they then said, oh, it's actually our comms agency that's delivered this to us, and we're still paying the same amount and blah blah. And I didn't get involved in it. I was just like, all right, okay, well, it's up to you to deal with what you want. But I think it highlighted a point, which is I don't like using AI is not a bad thing. You take the comms example, using AI is no bad thing at all in your workflow and your process. I think we're probably at a point now though where you need to be transparent with a client and show them the value you can create over and above one of their team using it, because to your point, Jenny, you've got a policy and you've got a system and you understand how the systems work, and you understand copyright and IP, and you'll make sure these things won't happen. And it sits here in our flow, which means that it doesn't get sent straight out. But what it does mean is maybe we can create X number of extra pieces of content a month for the same price, but we're using it. And so I think it's about leveraging the tools, because if you know how to use them, there's a difference between like putting something into ChatGPT and asking it to write a blog or press release or whatever, and then just sending it to somebody, and someone who's a really good user of the tool getting to a much better output by using the tool and their experience and expertise, right? There's a world of difference between those two things. So I think, for all of us, like, in the agency world or agencies in general, it's going, okay, where are we most at risk from AI being able to do what we do, and a client just going, we'll do it instead because someone can do it on ChatGPT, right? And those areas, then we got to think, do we build an offering where we extend our expertise and do way more than they'll be able to do because they won't have the time to learn it and everything else, and still have that as a service line? Or do we know that service line is just going to be gradually eroded over time, and we need to move to our other service lines or create new ones, or figure out what the impact of that is? And I think that's the reality of where we are today.
I am so glad you brought this up, Tom. And I remember we spoke about it when we spoke before. This transparency piece, the erosion of trust when, an agency comes to you and says, look, this is what we've received from our agency, clearly lifted directly. And how that potentially damages the trust in the relationship. And all the more reason for you, for what you say, is to be transparent, to have that open conversation, to establish boundaries and usage in advance, but also most importantly, what you said, which was show the value, demonstrate the value. Everyone knows these tools are out there. Your clients know they're out there. They're using them themselves. No one's under any illusions what's happening here. But if you're not proactively having that conversation first to say, hey, we know that this is what we can do, but this is what we're doing and this is why. And also having that negotiation, because going back to my previous question about business models, you said it yourself, I know I can do this in 2 seconds. What am I actually paying for if they're charging me the same?
Yeah.
So how are we going to be pricing in the future? How's that going to shift the way we price, not only choosing the services we're going to be promoting, but also how we price them?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's going to, the agency world is going to have a big impact on, and it's already post-COVID been a tough landscape for agencies and service businesses, given the economic climate and what's happened. But I think we're what we see at the moment is there's a turning point, particularly this year, in terms of clients really leaning into AI now. Last year, we did a lot more training and education than I thought we would, and less actual implementation. We were skewed more training, less implementation. And this year's gone the other way, and it feels like that's the sort of, that's just people, like you say, people like they know team leads know people are using AI in their organization. They know people are using it, whether they've said they can use it or not, right? When we go into teams and we run these insight surveys, one of the things that we do is we break down the team sort of makeup, right? And there's four key like AI users in all teams. There's the AI evangelist, who because you can hear them coming talking about AI, right? This is me and people who are into it, and they're on a scale from ridiculously excited and AI is going to solve everything to just like really being fascinated by the tech and wanting to learn and talk to people, right? So you know who they are because they tell you. You then have the hidden users, right? They're using AI, but they don't tell anybody. They don't tell anyone, and they don't talk about AI, and they don't do it because probably, I think, they're getting really good feedback, right? They're using these tools, and people are going, "Oh my God, like Sarah, she delivers this stuff so quick now," and they don't want to like have that taken away, the shine from them, right? So you've got these hidden users that are all over AI, but don't tell anyone. You've got the rebels who are against it, and they're vocal as well, and part of that is driven by fear a lot of the time of it's going to displace me or my job, or kill us all, worst case scenario, doomsday scenario. And then you've got the watchers, much like on social media. You've got the watchers who just like, they're not sure, they're just seeing what's playing out and what's happening, and and everything else. And so we see these four groups: the evangelists, the hidden users, the rebels, and the watchers, we call them. And they're in every organization and every team. And even when an organization has said, we're not using AI, and here's why, people are still using it, right? No doubt they're still using it. So again, the if you take that into like, well, what can we build, in terms of offerings for clients, the risk of not having an aligned team, not having a really good policy and way of working with AI, is that what will happen is someone will use it for the wrong thing, and you'll have, a negative impact. And that might be minor, that might be a minor little brand dink, or it could be catastrophic, right? That's the scale we're talking about. So if you're an agency going into clients, that's where you can add more value, right? They're they're not overnight going to understand like how to put these systems into really complicated workflows, which the best ones are, how to protect stuff, how to create, checks and everything else in there. It's going to be too much. And the risk is if they just start playing around with this stuff, they'll end up in, with brand damage to some degree. And we've seen it already, right? There's a classic case last year of, outside the agency world, but of a lawyer in America using ChatGPT to research their case, and it made stuff up that they presented in court. And, they're now in court, or they were in court, so I think as an agency, if you're going to clients, you're saying, look, here's how we work with it. This is what we can do in terms of positive outputs, and this is what we protect you from. Because if you just let your team loose on this stuff, there are risks, right? There are risks involved, and somebody's got to take that on board.
I was just going to say, I didn't know about that case, but I had Sharon Torek, who's a US lawyer who specializes in agencies, and she was saying the importance of not only what you're referring to, your internal teams, but also don't forget about the freelancers that you pull in that could start using the tools, differently. And if something gets out that shouldn't have done, then the liability, do you think that working with lawyers is becoming more important, Tom? Or do you see that lawyers, as you've just said, some of them are not as up to speed as perhaps they should be? Like, what's your view on that?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I'm just thinking, how many good friends do I know that are lawyers? A few. So no, I think the legal aspect is hard to keep up with, right? We're right in the middle of a lot of cases that are happening, and a lot that is going on around the foundation models and obviously the data they've used to train them, and then the outputs and how people are using them. And even recently, there was a case in the US whereby they said that if you had created something using generative AI and then modified it substantially enough, you could copyright it. And that was a new law, because previously you couldn't copyright stuff that came out of the generative tools. Of course, what is substantial moderation? I don't know. I'm not sure where that line is. It's probably blurred. But yeah, I think if you're using these tools and embedding them into what you're doing, at some point you need to understand where the law is for the tools you're using and what that means totally. And that was what we did with clients where we used the tools. We would advise them on what the legal aspect within the T's and C's meant for them. If they created outputs, could they own them or not? Could they use them or not? And there's all these steps to go through to figure that stuff out. And that isn't set in stone either. That's changing over time. So, yeah, the advice would obviously be, if you can find a lawyer that is on top of this stuff, great. And send them to me as well, please, if you do find them, because it is complicated. But you can figure quite a lot of this stuff out yourself as well. And, again, one of the things, this isn't like what you would do in terms of, your overall understanding the legal position and strategy. But one of the great things about generative is it can explain stuff to you, right? I use the generative tools to explain contracts to me, right? Reading contracts where when I was signing stuff off at my old agency, one of the things I hated the most, like, why are we still using these outdated ways of writing terminology that's confusing unless you work in law to describe something simple? It's ridiculous. Well, you just put that into AI and you go, tell me what this means. Are you sure? 100%, yes or no? Explain it in a different way. Okay, at least now I know what that means. And then I can decide, do I want extra outside help to finalize this or understand, or is that enough for me? And you can make that call, but at least I can go from a starting point of actually not having to spend hours reading one paragraph 40 times to try and work out what it means. So I do think, yeah, there is that, but you can do quite a lot yourself with a driven, intelligent team to figure this stuff out.
I agree. I agree. Can I just step back a step again? Because you said something really, really quite key, that currently where we are now, the dynamic between the agency and the client, it's imperative that we demonstrate the value that we're bringing to the clients, given how quickly some of the tools can get to at least 70% of the output. So if you were talking in a room of agency owners now, and they were all kind of trying to think of, maybe just take any type of agency, maybe a performance marketing agency, they're doing, you know, all sort of different services. Where is that extra value that they can bring that's going to endure for a longer period of time? Where do you think we're heading when it comes to true value?
Well, this is going to vary by agency. I think, this is in part like the journey you go on as a business, which is very similar to the journey we all went on with digital or the internet, right? It's a very similar journey. Like if you knew what you knew now today, when the internet started, you wouldn't have set a goal as a business to build a website and tick the box that we've done digital, or we've done tech, the internet, right? Whatever back then it was, we called it. I can't even remember. What you would have said was, okay, this technology is probably going to change a lot. It's probably going to be here for a long, long time. And like, while the changes in a year might not feel much, the changes over 10 years feel massive. So what we need to do is we need to think about how we understand and embed this into the way we work to deliver more value every year. That would have been a better goal to set at the beginning of the internet stroke digital revolution, right? And we're in the same space. Like, it's less about, for agency, I think it's less about like finding the one thing that is going to deliver the value than taking a mindset that this is going to change stuff. We can do a lot more with it. We are in the world of technology, so we should really be ahead of clients on this stuff anyway, but we're going to have to learn it. It's a new technology, and we're going to have to figure out how we embed it into what we do. And it will change what we do, and it will change what we're able to deliver, and it will change the client as well. But that isn't going to be like a 3 months thing that we figure out and it's done. That's a never-ending thing that we're just going to have to go on. And I think that's a better mindset to have, because it's really hard to identify what point or what specific thing is going to make the difference.
I think that's a really good answer, actually, because by its very nature, the agency industry is reactive. Why? We are reacting to our clients' needs. We're leading our clients, and we bring the expertise in what we do, but we are also flexing and adapting to the changing market as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good good mindset.
And your point, by the way, there on like, I think the question you asked is the right lens, which is, where does it deliver most value, or where does it allow us to deliver better work? Like, what use of AI makes our work better? Now, we're no doubt going to be in a phase now, we're already in it, whereby you can create more stuff quickly. And so if you're a creator of any kind, at some point you'll fall into the trap of creating some stuff that you'll look back on and you'll be like, it's not actually that good, I shouldn't have done that. And you got to rebalance that stuff. So, but we will be in an area of explosion of average content. We're already in an area now where the new models that are being trained on a large proportion of data created by the old models on the internet. And so what does that do? Well, we don't know what that does actually, and that is a weird area to be in anyway for the evolution of AI. So we'll see how that plays out. But of course, we've got the ability to create lots of content, which means there'll be more of it created. A lot of it won't be very good. So that, to your point, is crucial, isn't it? That we go, okay, well, what makes the work better? Ultimately, that's the question to ask and to figure out continuously. If we can use it to make our work better and stand out, then we're probably using it in the right areas.
Just stepping back into the bigger picture, because I'm just conscious of time, and I want to get your thoughts on this. There are kind of these three phases of the evolution of AI, and as far as I can understand. Where do you think we are in this evolution? Because depending on what podcast I listen to, AGI is actually here now and, taking over. But where do you see in the big picture? Because you're obviously looking at how quickly this is all changing.
Yeah. So in relation to this, it's like, where are we today? And AGI, obviously, artificial general intelligence being the phrase used for when it's more intelligent than we are. And then into the future, where are we in those phases? Look, this is another one. I'm not a big fan of those labels, because I think, they're all right for those big companies, right? Why has OpenAI got the valuation it has? Because if it can create these systems that are super intelligent, right? Way more intelligent than we are, then of course it's going to be the most valuable company in the world, right? In terms of what it's able to do. So you can see why. But they want to talk about those labels because that's their mission and that's where they're headed. For the rest of us, they're not really that helpful, because what is it? How do we know we're there? What is human intelligence, and how are we testing it, and where do we get to? Really, for the majority of people looking at AI, it's a technology and it's a tool, and it's how useful is it to us. And what we are seeing, even in the last 6 months, with the evolution of these models and new ways of making them perform better, is they are getting better, and they are evolving. And like any technology, I think it will continue to evolve. Now, I heard. I think this was taken from the CEO of Anthropic, who built Claude, which is like one of the competitors to ChatGPT. But he said a really interesting thing, which was, we don't talk today about using supercomputers. But if you took, like, my laptop I'm on here is a MacBook M3, right? It's a decent bit of kit. But if you took this back to the beginning of the internet, this would be like the equivalent of a mainframe, like server room or something. This would be a supercomputer. We don't call it a supercomputer. We just call it a good laptop now. And I think that's the same with tech. Like, the labels aren't that helpful for anyone, really. They're quite exciting, maybe. They're good to build excitement, to raise money and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, in future, they're going to be more intelligent. But the reality is, I think we're just on a path where seemingly it's going to keep getting better. Now, will it slow down a bit at times? Maybe. But with all these areas of technology, as soon as one area slows down and creates constraints, that's what drives creativity. And we've seen that just in the last evolution of models, where the models have been given more time to think about their answers. And so previously, on the scaling laws, what we've had is you can feed a model more data and train it, and it performs better. Now we have, test time compute, which is, the model can think about its answer for longer, and we can give it a bit more compute and juice there, and it performs much better as well. So we've created something new out of these constraints. And so I think we'll find new ways of evolving the technology, because the rewards are so great. And at least for the foreseeable future, it's just going to get incrementally better and better and better. And so, what is it? It's finding the right areas to use it. And I just sort of forget about the AGI and ASI, and we don't need more 3-letter acronyms for most people in the industry. It's like, now's the time to understand it, learn about it, lean into it, and figure it out. And you then just get taken along for that ride as the tech gets better and better. So I sort of think about it more that way, rather than where are we? Because I'll only make a prediction that's probably wrong. People have been saying we're going to have AGI in 6 months for the last couple of years, and we haven't.
I think I love your approach, Tom, and obviously you went through that digital change, didn't you, before? So you're probably approaching it because you were close to it then. You're closer to it now. It's like an evolution of digital, isn't it?
Yeah.
And using that laptop story just brings it home to us how advanced we are now. And I suppose the same mindset is prevalent around AI as it was back when, people were talking about websites. And I love that kind of identifying the evangelists, the hidden users, the rebels, and the watchers. It really nicely encapsulates people that I've met, people that are talking about this stuff. Tom, this has been absolutely fantastic. I want to be respectful of your time. Just finally, if someone would like to talk to you about coming in to help them on their journey, who do you want to hear from first of all, and what's the best way to contact you?
Well, look, we're open to anybody who's interested in using AI or learning about it. Then please do get in touch. Best way to contact us through our website, generate.com, G3NR8.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, as you say. Drop me a message on there, and yeah, we're always open to any conversations around AI. That's all we talk about and do every single day. So yeah, website or LinkedIn.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your knowledge. This has been brilliant, Tom. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenny.
I'm pausing because I'm looking, thinking, where do I stop it? I've got this big telephone in red saying leave, but I
No,
don't
yeah,
want
I
to leave,
don't
do
think
I?
no, I don't think you want that, do you? It says it's 99% uploaded, which is good.
That's good.
When the recording is done, you may need to stick around a little. Yeah, okay.
Oh, can't see it. I'm so sorry. I knew this was going to happen. Honestly, it
All
was
right.
all looking too good.
Let me have
Thank
a
you,
look.
Tom. By the way, that was absolutely fantastic. It was really, really great talking to you as well.
Oh, it was great to be on. I mean, they just flew by, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
That's why I was thinking, God, just don't waste its time. Get on with the questions.
No, it's really good.
Oh,
Is
there's
there a stop button at the bottom of the riverside?
honestly, I know what you're. I know there isn't. Honestly, I know
There
what you're
isn't.
saying. Like, come on.
No,
Oh,
no, it's
end
fine.
session for all.
Is that just going to hang up?
Well, one's leave studio and the other one's end session for all. Shall I do that? That looks like the only thing.
Riverside.
I think it must be.
Yeah.
Shall I just do it? Because there's nothing else on here.
Uh,
I don't, because there's no pause, there's no stop. I'm sorry.
don't worry. Look,
Is it?
let me just ask ChatGPT
Oh,
quickly
bless you.
because it might give us an answer quick, just so we. Um,
It's not obvious though.
let's see what it says.
Bless your heart.
It's crucial to ensure all files are saved correctly. It says, stopping the recording. Click the stop recording button. This is usually a red button at the bottom of the recording interface.
Okay, wait. There is a stop.